The latest polls, Chris, we just read the Sky Pulse poll. There's an uptick there for Angus Taylor. I think a steadying of the One Nation vote. Still bad polls for Labor. The government's really gone, I think, hard now after One Nation. They lampooned them for so long. The Prime Minister always, going after Pauline Hanson as some sort of joke. But now he's become very full frontal in his attack. So too the Treasurer. Here he was today.
The very dangerous risk that One Nation poses to wages and working families in this country. And the thing about One Nation is there is no way that the Liberals and Nationals can govern without being in coalition with One Nation. And those three parties, that three-ring circus, they share a very divisive anti-worker agenda.
And mate, this mirrored, I guess, the rationale we saw yesterday from Ben Carroll. It was all about the polls. That's why Jacinta Allen went. It was craven self-interest from Labor MPs who wanted to keep their seats. But he made it himself all about the risk come November of a coalition One Nation government in Victoria. What do you make of this?
See this. A party with no clear leader in an entire state, no formal coalition with anyone, and somehow it's the single most terrifying word in Anthony Albanese's briefing notes. Not the coalition, not Peter Dutton's successor, Pauline Hanson. Quick favour, if you're loving this breakdown, let me see you hit that subscribe button right now. Over 90% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now, let's get back to it.
Well, it's Politics 101 for the Labor Party. It's what I would be doing at the moment, which is to paint your opponent as a risk, to paint One Nation in particular as unpredictable, inexperienced, and certainly a danger of a vote, a risk of a vote, and that he's trying now to put everyone in the same pot. So essentially to say that the fractured right-hand side of Australian politics is unfit to govern. And unfortunately, it's true to a certain extent that they keep offering proof points to this, so that One Nation and the coalition at the moment are certainly, the One Nation in particular is certainly making up some ground. But unfortunately, it's really hard to pin One Nation down as to what they would be and what they would do in government. I've got to say, when it comes to Victoria, who leads One Nation in Victoria? If people want an option, and if that option really isn't there, if it looks to them like the coalition and One Nation's going to be a risk, then it forces them back into the Labor Party's ticket. So, of course, this is the sort of thing the Labor Party would do, and it would be helpful if the coalition and One Nation didn't provide proof points so often that they were incapable of governing.
I guess, though, in aggregate terms, Chris, a few things it says to me. It says to me, clearly One Nation's showing up in internal party polling for Labor. Not the published polls, not the stuff that we see, but that really fine drill-down polling that only a political party does. So it's there. The PM wouldn't have made it such a feature of the National Conference the other weekend if it wasn't. But also, if you look in aggregate terms, and they're not a multi-party coalition yet, or of any shape or form, on the centre-right, but you have got this concentration of anyone but the government vote, anyone but Labor, and that's occurring federally and certainly occurring in Victoria. And Labor, rather than I guess take the concerns of people who have left them seriously, they're now wheeling around and attacking One Nation supporters. Now, I say to the Liberals, don't do that either. Fight the ground, the policy ground where the differences are, but don't attack people who've left you. Labor got to be careful about that as well.
Yeah, certainly, and I'm sure that in working class suburbs that One Nation is mopping up the discontent that people see there. But the problem that we've got in the two-party preferred system is I see a lot of people who just add up the One Nation vote and the coalition vote and think, hey, presto, that transforms into government. Well, no, it doesn't. Not if it fractures and those preferences spray everywhere. And that's what the government does know. So if the Victorian Labor Party can lift its primary vote high enough, and that will not necessarily be that high in this day and age, then it's back in this fight. So, and it's obvious that what you would do is try and work on the weaknesses of your opponent. The biggest weaknesses of the right-hand side of politics at the moment is it's absurdly divided and looks completely disorganised. So that's a problem, certainly a problem for Jess Wilson in Victoria.
For years, Labor's playbook on One Nation was simple. Laugh it off, roll your eyes, call it a sideshow, treat Pauline Hanson like a bloke at the pub who's had one too many and won't stop talking about the price of milk. That strategy is dead, buried, gone the way of the flip phone. Because right now, internal Labor polling, the private numbers, the ones that actually keep strategists awake at 3 in the morning, are showing One Nation isn't fading. It's holding steady. And in politics, steady when everyone expects collapse is basically a superpower. So what's Labor doing about it? They've gone full frontal. Albanese and Jim Chalmers aren't dismissing Hanson anymore. They're treating her like a genuine threat to government stability, warning voters about wages, about working families, about what happens if the coalition needs One Nation's preferences to scrape into power. Think of it like a footy coach who used to ignore the reserve grade player until that reserve started kicking more goals than the star forward. Suddenly, you've got a whole new game plan. Now here's where it gets properly interesting, and this is the bit most punters miss completely. Labor isn't attacking One Nation because they think Hanson's about to become Prime Minister. They're attacking her because she's the perfect prop for a completely different argument, that the entire right side of politics is a shambles. Picture 3 blokes trying to parallel park one car. Liberals, Nationals, One Nation, all tugging the wheel in different directions, nobody agreeing on the mirrors, and Labor's just standing on the footpath filming it for the campaign ad. That's the strategy. Not One Nation is scary, but look at this chaos. Do you really want these 3 in charge of anything? But hang on, because here's the twist that trips up half the commentary you'll see on this. Everyone assumes you can just add up coalition votes and One Nation votes like it's simple maths. Tally the columns, hand over the keys to government. Real elections don't work like that. Preferences aren't a loyalty card, they're more like footy tipping, wildly unpredictable and prone to embarrassing upsets. One Nation voters aren't a bloc marching in lockstep behind the coalition. Plenty of them are protest voters, cost of living voters, I'm sick of the lot of you voters, and their second preference could land anywhere from the Nationals to, awkwardly for the right, even Labor itself. Which brings us to Victoria, and this is where the real drama's unfolding ahead of November. Labor's path back to relevance isn't about winning back progressive voters with some bold new agenda. It's about something far less glamorous and far more calculated, simply outlasting the chaos on the other side. Jacinta Allen and Ben Carroll have been leaning hard into the message that a fractured, leaderless right, and yes, One Nation Victoria genuinely lacks a clear figurehead right now, is too big a gamble to hand the keys to. Critics call it self-interest dressed up as principle. Maybe, but in politics, self-interest that happens to be strategically sound tends to work rather well. And here's the part that should genuinely give you pause, because it's the real headline hiding underneath all this. Labor's comeback story isn't actually a comeback. Their own support is shrinking too. This isn't Labor riding some wave of popularity back into government. It's Labor becoming the last party standing while everyone around them trips over their own shoelaces. That's not strength, that's survival by default. And it's one of the strangest phenomena in modern Australian politics, relevance earned not through popularity, but through being marginally less chaotic than the alternative. Now, a word of caution here, because this cuts both ways and fairness matters. If Labor, or frankly the coalition, starts treating everyday One Nation voters as villains rather than people frustrated about wages, housing, and the cost of simply getting by, that's a losing move. These aren't cartoon characters. They're Australians who feel like nobody's listening, and mocking them just hands Hanson more ammunition. The suburbs where One Nation is gaining ground aren't full of extremists. They're full of people tired of empty promises from every direction. So keep your eyes on Victoria this November, because what happens there won't just decide a state government. It'll be a live test of whether chaos on one side is enough to keep power on the other indefinitely. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. And please don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below.